Just imagine you're separated from your unit, it's dark, and you run into one of these. Nerd Nation. Today we are going to talk about the roaches. They are without number. This is the enemy species dossier. This is what the Acadians have to fight day by day to protect their city, Acadia, from the relentless hordes of the roaches. We're going to talk about the different types of creatures and their ability skills and how they go about doing what they do best, which is trying to destroy the last bastion of humanity. Okay, so we're going to talk about the size and threat classes. First, you got class 1 is about the size of a cat. Class 2, dog. Class 3 is about human size to horse size, so a little bit of a gradient there. Class 4, about the size of a sedan. Class 5 is about the size of a box truck. Class 6, you are starting to get quite a bit bigger. It's 2 stories in height. That doesn't necessarily indicate its length. Class 7 is going to be enormous. It's going to be about a 3-story. Class 8 is absolutely massive. It is 4 to 5 story. These are the frontline devastation units. Then you get class 9 to 10. It is colossal, line breakers, city scale destruction, 6 stories plus, and they keep getting bigger. Okay, so this is an indication of the size. Way down here, that's an Acadian. He's a class 3. You got your ankle biters, and then you go on the way up. So this is class 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we don't even have a class 10 on here. All right, let's first talk about the Reavers. These are the armored ground assault units, the backbone of every roach horde. And you have several different types, and we're going to talk about a few of these types. First, you've got the Reaver Subjugator. This is dense armor, massive numbers, and a relentless drive to mobilize whenever weakness is sensed. This is the backbone of the Roaches army. These creatures come in mass amount of numbers and just continually flood the attackers or the Acadians. So their weaknesses, they have limited vision. They only see what lies directly ahead. Their speed, fairly quick, land 40 miles per hour, sprint up to 50 miles per hour. Weapons, they have the primary razor mandibles. The primary weapon they have is razor mandibles. And then they also have the serrated limbs or thorns. Their combat role is to swarm and overwhelm, and they do that to great effect. The Reaver Subjugator. Next, we have the Reaver Popper. Like its name suggests, it actually is full of vats of acid that pop upon impact with the Acadian lines. Their volatile acid explosions create chaos, distracting enemies and eroding energy shields. Weakness, they're highly susceptible to blazer fire, prone to detonating prematurely when overcome by the frenzy of battle. So ranged fire or blazer fire can rupture these acid sacs, and they could actually spill out on the roaches that they are actually trying to fight alongside of. So that is a weakness. But they're fairly quick, about 20 miles per hour, and sprint up to 30 miles per hour, so much slower than the Subjugator. Their primary weapons are the volatile acid sacs, explosives, and the secondary is the razor mandibles that they can use, but they rarely do because likely they have already exploded by then. Combat role is to distract and weaken shields. So when the Acadians are all synced up in their phalanx formation, they have shared shields. The Popper's objective is to diminish those shields through the acid explosions. Next, we have the Reaver Skitterfang. This operates very much like a cavalry unit, right? While lacking in mass and killing power, they compensate with speed and mobility across all terrains, even scaling walls. They're less armored than other Reavers and highly susceptible to blazer or ranged fire. So basically, their quickness allows them to get to the enemy and flank, but they can be hit pretty substantially hard by ranged fire. They get up to 80 miles per hour, and they can sprint up to 110 miles per hour, making them the fastest creature now on Earth. I'm sorry, cheetahs. You got beaten out. Their weapons primary is the fangs and jaws, and then also secondary is their razor mandibles. Okay, combat role, they are a flanking unit. Next, you have the Reaver Arachnoid. Strengths, while lacking in mass, they compensate with agility and tremendous leaping power, can detect attackers from all directions, and are capable of leaps up to 100 yards. Their weaknesses, less armored than other Reavers and highly susceptible to blaze or ranged fire. They also dislike crowded battlefields, often pulling back when other creatures are swarming. So fairly quick, land speed 36 miles per hour, sprint speed 46 miles per hour. Their primary weapon is razor fangs, and the secondary is their leaping strikes. So the benefit they add to the group is they are able to leap over certain phalanxes, units, and to appear where they are not expected. The combat role is adaptable auxiliary units. Now you got the Reaver Carrier. Strengths, while lacking in mass and killing power, they compensate with the overwhelming number of creatures they deliver to the battlefield. So these Reavers actually carry a whole bunch of ankle biters in the shell cavities of their armor, and it enables them to carry hundreds of these small creatures that then deploy upon impact with the Acadian front lines. Speed, relatively slower. Land, 26 miles per hour, up to a sprint, 32 miles per hour. Weapons primary deployed. Their primary weapons are the deployed ankle biter. Secondary, gore forged horns. So they do have a set of horns that can deliver some damage. Combat role, transport ankle biters to the front lines. Now we're going to talk about the Cetonicons. Cetonicons don't swarm, they collapse. Walls, shields, and nerves. So here's a Cetonicon Prime. It is highly aggressive, one of the most aggressive roach variants that exist. Massive shells, overwhelming size, and unrelenting ferocity. Weaknesses, it's prone to impetuousness, often ignoring commands and choosing their own target. Speed is about 32 miles per hour, sprint up to 45 miles per hour. Their weapons, primary serrated fangs, secondary is dozens of daggered limbs. The roaches, typically any limb that they have, they are going to turn it into a weapon. With this Cetonicon Prime having so many limbs, those all represent various blades that can pierce the armor of an Acadian that has diminished shields. Their combat role is simply shield and morale breaker, and they do it time and time again. Next, you have the Cetonicon Line Breaker. This is very aggressive as well, not quite as aggressive as the Prime, but it's massive armored shell, colossal size, and has relentless ferocity. It's also weakness prone to impetuousness, often ignoring commands and choosing their own targets. Speed, a little bit slower, 28 miles per hour, sprint up to 38 miles per hour. Primary weapons are their mandibles and the dozens of daggered limbs. For size comparison, this thing right here, that's actually an Acadian. Combat role, siege unit, destroyer of shields. And sometimes they even try to take apart the wall that surrounds Acadia. These are massive siege engines. Next, you have the Cetonicon Spiner. So right here is an Acadian, so this is quite a bit smaller. It's armored and built for both speed and ranged attacks, allowing it to flank or reinforce roach forces with speed and precision. So it goes quite a bit faster, but it's less armored than other Cetonicons, making them susceptible to blazer fire. Each spine fired leaves the body more exposed and vulnerable. So one of the weapons that this spiner has, it actually can shoot projectile spines. And each one of these is a projectile that can be deployed with fairly accurately into an Acadian line. And their primary weapon are their mandibles and secondary projectile spines. They are a siege support unit. Next, we have the Cetonicon White Maw. So this is one of the smaller variants of the Cetonicons. It's only a class 6, right? So about 2 stories or 20 feet tall. Strength, beneath their massive carapace lie dozens of cavities holding nearly 2 60,000 ankle biters. And we'll talk a little bit more what ankle biters are and what their abilities are, ready to be deployed at will. Weakness, the least armored of the Cetonicons. When their carapace opens to release creatures, they become highly vulnerable. So as soon as they impact into the shield wall or the line of Acadian forces, they actually, underneath all of their carapace here, they have little cavities that hold the ankle biters. And they deploy, and there can just be suddenly thousands of these creatures ripping out of this white maw. So their speed is 32 miles per hour, sprint 45 miles per hour. Primary weapon is their jaws, or are their jaws, and secondary deployed ankle biters. They are a siege support in their combat role. Next, we have the skewers or pincers. They are not bred for frontline engagement. They hover, stalk, and strike when formations begin to break. These are aerial units. This is a skewer skyhook. So its strengths, incredible speed, sharp maneuverability, and the element of surprise in their attacks. Weakness, lightly armored and dependent on diving from extreme heights to build lethal momentum. So how these function is they could never charge into a phalanx shield line, especially when there are collective shields, and hope to do much damage or hope to have much success. What they do is more when the Acadians are falling back, or their collective shields have broken down, or there's an isolated Acadian. They begin to dive, and they go incredibly fast, faster or about the speed of a peregrine falcon. They dive about 250 miles per hour, and their average flying speed is about 120 miles per hour. So their weapons are the skewer, and as simply as their name suggests, what they do is they dive and then they try to skewer Acadians that are isolated or separated from the group. The dive, the momentum, and the skewer can sometimes completely shatter an Acadian shield, and essentially killing and leaving that Acadian vulnerable. Their secondary weapon is their serrated appendages. So much like most of the roaches, their legs and limbs all become weapons in their own right. Combat role, it's a harassing unit. Next, you have the skewer hooktail. This is a class 3, a little bit bigger, right? It's about the size of an Acadian. They have exceptional speed, superior maneuverability, and deadly surprise attacks. Hooktails possess stronger armor and greater power, allowing them to endure direct engagements in a frontal assault. So they can descend, they can actually combat Acadians and face them in their phalanx collective shields. But they still are lightly armored compared to their heavier variants, and substantially slower than the skyhook. So their dive is about 210 miles per hour, and their average flying speed is about 90 miles per hour. Again, they use the primary weapon is the skewers. They use that dive momentum to pick off an isolated Acadian. Their second is their stabbing tail, which gives them good amount of reach into the Acadian front lines, and they can administer damage and strikes to Acadians. Combat role, again, they are a harassing unit. Next, we have the skewer popper. High speed and deadly surprise attacks. These one-way trip creatures detonate on impact with the enemy, turning themselves into living weapons, right? So very similar to the reaver popper, the skewer popper just has acid sacs, and the whole point of it is to crash into the Acadian shield wall and to diminish the Acadian shields. So they dive about 120 miles per hour, quite a bit slower, and their average flying speed is about 60 miles per hour. So quite a bit more slower, harder to or have less maneuverability, and they're much more susceptible to range fire because the acid sacs, if they are ruptured by range fire, that could cause them to explode and fall out of the air. Weapons, primary is the exploding acid sacs, and secondary is their skewer, which they rarely use because the acid sacs are going to be what takes effect prior to them striking an Acadian with their skewer. Combat role, they are also a harassing unit. All right, let's talk about the specialists. Slugs, launchers, and crashers. So the slug, as ugly as it is incredibly incredibly beneficial for the roaches. They emit a wide array of frequencies from their bodies, severing and jamming communications within a 500-meter radius. Weakness, they are extremely slow and virtually defenseless, capable of disruption for only 30 minutes before exhaustion. Their speed is 3 miles per hour, and they sprint. They can really get themselves going. It's only about 4 miles per hour. So these creatures, their whole point is to disrupt communications. So especially if the roaches are going to try to do something really tricky, they deploy a slug, communications break apart, and they're able to maneuver themselves without the Acadians being able to react appropriately or quickly. Primary weapon, communication link disruption, and then secondary is the HUD interference. HUD interference is basically the interface in an Acadian's static helmet that allows them to assess threats and be able to get a data in stream of things that are coming their way. Combat role, interrupt communications. Next, you got a launcher spine crack. These actually are very cool creatures. They can violently dislocate their spines, generating a whiplash force that propels their bodies up to 500 yards, allowing them to strike from unexpected angles. The very first creature that we meet in Acadia is this, a launcher spine crack. And this is a new variant that the Roaches had just developed, and they're deploying it for the first time. And so the Acadians were kind of they were kind of surprised by the sudden appearance of this creature on the wall. It's only moderately armored, right? Which it's a lighter creature because that helps with its flight trajectory. The violent nature of their launch can sometimes kill or paralyze them on impact. Sometimes these things show up, they land on the wall, and they're already dead. The violent dislocating of their spine sometimes is fatal. Their speed is 20 miles per hour, and then when they're shot, it is unknown how fast they can get. It can range incredibly depending on how violent the dislocation of the spine is. Primary weapons are their razor fangs and crushing jaws. And then you also have the barbed appendages, lots of stabby things. Combat role, harassment of flanks and fixed gun positions. So since they can dislocate their spine, they can shoot themselves across the battlefield, they are perfect for flanking units or for attacking fixed gun positions along the wall or at a certain point, right? Next, you've got the Crasher Flatback. These things are rarely seen on the killing field. These creatures lurk in tunnels and narrow passages. When prey passes below, they drop from above, impaling victims with the jagged underside of their shell. But the weakness, the top of their shell is lightly armored and highly vulnerable to direct strikes. Their speed is about 40 miles per hour and sprint up to 15 miles per hour. So pretty quick creature, actually. Weapons primary is the jagged underbelly. And then also secondary is their barbed appendages. Their combat role is ambush. Now, we don't really see this in the first Acadia. We hear about it, and we don't see it in the second, but it does make a pretty strong appearance in the third. All right, let's talk about the ankle biters. Bred to disrupt formations, paralyze key personnel, and spread panic before the main wave arrives. No taller than a soldier's knee, they slip through the fences like vermin and strike with the precision of a scalpel. First, you got the ankle biter, needle tail. Often riding larger roaches into battle, these creatures can leap great distances and accelerate with speed, creating chaos among defenders. Weaknesses, completely unarmored and easily crushed under boot. Their effectiveness relies entirely on overwhelming numbers. So on speed-wise, they go about 10 miles per hour, sprint up to 15. Primary is their barbed scorpion tails, and secondary weapon is they are strictly and exclusively obnoxious. So they're pretty easy to deal with in ones and twos, but just imagine a wave of these creatures approaching, and it can get a lot more dangerous quickly. Combat role, harassment, and distraction. Next, you've got the quick fang ankle biter. Often riding into battle on larger roaches, these creatures can burrow into the softest parts of the body, devouring their victims from the inside out. So if an Acadian shield breaks, these creatures try to jump and latch on to the body and chewing through the body. But Their weaknesses, they're completely unarmored and easily crushed under boot. Their effectiveness relies on sheer numbers. Their speed is a little bit slower, 8 miles per hour, sprint 12 miles per hour. Their primary weapon is their chomping jaws, but they also have a barbed scorpion tail that can be effective when they're trying to burrow into an Acadian, and this barbed scorpion tail can administer damage while they are trying to accomplish that. Combat role, harassment and distraction. Ankle biter, spiral barb. Now, don't be deceived by its cute appearance. These things are vicious creatures. Strengths, often riding larger roaches in the battle. These creatures can accelerate quickly, leaping at unsuspecting enemies and ramming them with their spiral horn. So their speed is 12 miles per hour. Sprint is 20 miles per hour, so they can pick up quite a bit of speed and acceleration. Primary weapon is their bladed horn. And secondary, they are just obnoxious. Combat role, harassment, and distraction. Then you have the Damnati, right? Behind the hordes of roaches and the numberless hosts are the brains of the operation. The individuals that are designing the different variants of roaches and genetically manipulating them and developing them into greater weapons each and every day. You have the Damnati. So the Damnati, they're class 3, about the size of a human, a little bit shorter on average. Their strengths, these are exceptionally intelligent creatures. These exceptionally intelligent creatures direct and coordinate the relentless assault against Acadia. They are also masters of genetic engineering, crafting new breeds for war. Weakness, their armor holds less energy than other variants. Their armor holds less energy than the static armor of Acadians, and once it fails, it does not naturally recharge. Acadians actually recharge their energy naturally through their body. The Damnati can't do that, and they have to recharge it through other means. So their speed is about 18 miles per hour, but they can sprint up to 27 miles per hour. Their weapons is the Roach Command and the ability to direct the roaches and to coordinate their strategy and strategic planning. The secondary is they have similar weapons to the Acadians, like an arc blade that they can utilize in hand-to-hand combat. Combat role, commanders of the roach hordes. Know your enemy. So here's a good takeaway from each of the species and types and variants that we learned. Reavers, they do swarm tactics, exploit flanks, and use blazer fire. This will be able to slow them down and take away a lot of their momentum. Skewers, anti-air assets is critical. Watch for diving attacks, right? So with skewers, if you dedicate a good portion of your individuals, your warriors in your phalanx formation, to watch the skies and use blazers to take them down before they get too close, you'll be much better for it. Launchers, watch flanks and fixed positions, unpredictable trajectories. And these are the creatures that, excuse me, these are the creatures that can dislocate their spine and shoot themselves across the battlefield. Crashers, clear tunnels before advance and check the ceilings. Always good advice in a roach tunnel. Psittanicons, prioritize shield generators or shield generation. Your shields need to hold, otherwise you will simply be crushed by these Psittanicons. Avoid direct engagement. The best strategy is to have a distracting phalanx and attack from different vectors. Slugs, destroy on sight. You've got to protect your comms and your HUD integrity. If you don't have comms, it will be difficult to have success in any battle. Ankle biters, area of effect weapons, seal all armor gaps. So like your blazer fire, you can change the type of projectile they have. You could have a light bomb, and that creates an area of effect weapon. Or you can use your repulse shield and to surge with it, and that will push them back. And then Damnati, high value target. Eliminating disrupts horde coordination. All right, that's all I have for you today. But if you want more, thank you for your support, of course. Please like, comment below, subscribe, check out sterlingnixon.com and my merch page. Still doing the Race to 1,000. I'm giving away the first audiobook of Acadia, narrated by Ewan Morton. And if you want to learn more about that, please see the comment section below in the campaign entitled Race to 1,000. Anyway, that's all I have for you. And I'm super excited to share with you guys the next episode, which goes into spacecraft. Now, the first book, we don't see much of spacecraft. The second, quite a bit more. And the third, there is even substantially more than that. This ship right here is called the Perdition. And we see this predominantly in the second book. Anyway, that's all I have for you. Thank you guys so much. And you guys take care.